One of the many things I love about football is the strategy that goes into it. The game within the game, if you will. As you would expect, the attention to detail when it comes to strategy is heightened towards the end of the game. Just 2 weeks into the 2025 season, we've already witnessed 2 game-changing instances of late-game strategy that could have completely altered the outcome. We'll get into those in just a bit. My purpose for this video was to cover the examples of teams late in the fourth quarter, letting their opponent score in an effort to get the ball back and win the game themselves. Is it worth doing, and does it even work? Those are the questions we'll have answered by the end of the video. The most recent example, and the one that inspired me to do this, was week 2 of the 2025 season when the Texans hosted the Buccaneers on Monday Night Football. While it hasn't been confirmed that Tampa let Houston score in the final minutes, there's a very good chance that's exactly what happened here. Tampa was clinging to a 1-point lead with a little over 2 minutes remaining, but Houston was already on Tampa's 25-yard line. So in theory, Houston could have just picked up one more first down, ran out the clock, and kicked a chip shot field goal to win the game. However, on 2nd and 9, the Buccaneers showed questionable effort, and Nick Chubb scored from 25 yards out to make it a 6-point Houston lead. A failed 2-point conversion meant Tampa would have the ball last, and a touchdown drive would win the game. It wasn't easy, but the Buccaneers found the end zone with 6 seconds left, and their plan paid off. Houston went to 0-2 while Tampa remained undefeated. A week later in week 3, possibly learning from their own mistakes, the Texans did the exact thing Tampa did to them a week later. In a tie game with under 2 minutes to go, the Texans defense avoided touching Travis Etienne and watched him go in the end zone to get the ball back down by 7. It ultimately ended up not working, but I think their process was correct here. It gives your offense an extra 40 seconds to go down and score, and had Josh Hines-Allen not tipped this CJ Stroud pass, it may have resulted in a Texans win or overtime at the minimum. The other example from this season was one that I believe cost Baltimore a chance to make a comeback in a game they had already choked away at Buffalo. Baltimore was still up 40-38 with under a minute to go and did have all of their timeouts remaining. With 40 seconds to go, Keon Coleman caught a slant one-on-one with Jair Alexander and was tackled inside of the 10-yard line. He didn't know it at the time, but Jair Alexander just cost his team the game by doing that. Coleman looked pretty set on scoring, and had Alexander let him do that, Lamar and the Ravens would have got the ball back, down 4 or 6 points depending on the conversion, 40 seconds remaining and all 3 of their timeouts left. From Jair's perspective, I get it. It's the heat of the moment, and that play began from the 29-yard line, so it's not like you're thinking about letting them score a touchdown. But since the shoestring tackle happened, it allowed Buffalo to kneel the ball 3 times and make a routine 32-yard field goal to win the game. Now, would you rather go out like that, or with the ball in the hands of your MVP? That's an easy decision in my mind. With recent examples covered, let's rewind to what is probably the most famous example of letting your opponent score, and that's Super Bowl 46. With a minute and 4 seconds remaining, the Patriots had just 1 timeout left. The Giants could have kneeled the ball twice and kicked a field goal within 30 yards to win the Super Bowl by 1 point. Instead, New England decided before the play to let the Giants score, and although Ahmad Bradshaw, the Giants running back, tried to stop, his momentum took him into the end zone, putting the Giants up 21-17. And if you had any doubts that this was on purpose, Patriots linebacker Gerard Mayo blatantly admitted it was their plan to let him score.
Let him score! You gotta let him score!
To no surprise, Tom Brady was a fan of this as well, even if it did end with New England coming up short. "I liked it," Brady said. "Better than not having a chance at all. We had a chance to win at the end and we just couldn't do it." Speaking of the Patriots, I wanted to bring up this example from 2003 as well. I guess technically they let their opponent score, but it was their own doing. On Monday Night Football Week 9 2003, New England found themselves down 1 with 2 minutes and 51 seconds remaining in the fourth quarter. After 3 straight incompletions, the Pats found themselves stuck at their own 1-yard line. Rather than punting the ball in that situation and setting up Denver with great field position, Belichick had his long snapper purposely snap the ball out of the back of the end zone, which resulted in a safety. Their 1-point deficit went to a 3-point deficit, but what this did for them was give the Patriots better field position. So essentially, they surrendered 2 points in exchange to be able to punt the ball ball from 19 yards ahead of where they previously were. In typical Patriot fashion, it worked to perfection. Defense gets a 3 and out, Brady gets the ball back, they go down and score a touchdown with 30 seconds left and escape Denver with a win. A smart strategy that was executed to perfection. As we get back on track here, let's revisit a pretty recent example during the pandemic season in 2020. The Lions were visiting Atlanta and found themselves up by 2 points with 1 minute and 12 seconds remaining. Atlanta's offense was on Detroit's 10-yard line and literally could have kneeled the ball twice and left with a victory, assuming they would make their 30-yard field goal. Now, ironically, the head coach of the Detroit Lions at this time was Matt Patricia. Patricia, as you may recall, was on the Patriots coaching staff during the Super Bowl in 2011, where they let Ahmad Bradshaw intentionally score 9 years prior. Considering this is something he saw firsthand, there was a very good chance he was going to try it again. Detroit had no timeouts left, so really their only possibility of winning the game was to let Todd Gurley score and go down by 6 points with a minute remaining.
Hey, don't score. Yeah, I would. Don't score. Don't score. Get the first, get down.
Gurley, like Bradshaw funny enough, tried to stop himself from scoring, but couldn't. Atlanta scored the go-ahead touchdown with 1 minute and 4 seconds left, and Detroit's defenders were celebrating. Even though Gurley scored, Detroit still had to go 75 yards in 57 seconds with no timeouts. It wasn't easy. Matthew Stafford made 3 or 4 insane throws on the ensuing drive, and the Detroit Lions scored a touchdown as time expired. Matt Prater made the important PAT, and that was it. A game that Atlanta had a 95% chance of winning according to ESPN's win probability was thrown away. And this was still around the time the Falcons were choking games left and right, so it was not the best look. I made a video on that, by the way, if you're interested. Our next example takes us to the 1997 season, where the Packers met the Broncos in Super Bowl 32. Denver found themselves on the Green Bay 1-yard line with 1 minute and 47 seconds to go, and the Packers only having 2 timeouts remaining. The score was tied 24-24, so Green Bay could have played it straight up and hoped for the best, or given Brett Favre the ball with 2 timeouts and over a minute and a half remaining. Packers head coach Mike Holmgren later admitted his plan was to let Terrell Davis score and get the ball back. We've got to let them score. It was a strategy. I felt it was our only chance to win the football game. It started out well with the Packers' first play from scrimmage getting them over midfield, but the Broncos, with some help from an Antonio Freeman drop, were able to hold on for the victory. In this particular case, I thought head coach Mike Holmgren may have been getting a bit too cute. The Packers did have 2 timeouts remaining, and it was already 2nd and goal, so Green Bay did have enough timeouts where the Broncos just couldn't kneel out the clock. Best case scenario, they have a goal line stand and get the ball back with over a minute left, no timeouts, but only needing 3 points to tie instead of 7. But with the way Terrell Davis was running, I understood it. Chances are he was going to get in the end zone anyway, so you want your offense to have as much time as possible and as many timeouts as possible. It wasn't a foolish decision by Holmgren, but not a no-brainer either. In 2021, the Chargers hosted the Browns in a high-scoring matchup that saw a total of 89 points. On the Chargers' final offensive drive down by 1, they found themselves with the ball on Cleveland's 11-yard line and just 1 minute and 47 seconds remaining. On 3rd and 2, they ran a toss to Austin Eckler, who probably scores with ease in a normal situation. However, Eckler made the high IQ decision and decided to slide after getting the first down, but before reaching the goal line. With Cleveland having no timeouts remaining, the Chargers would have had to kneel 3 times and kicked an effortless field goal to win the game as time expired. Now, most times when a defense lets their opponent score, the seas part and the offensive player runs in untouched. In this wild example, the Browns defense had the wherewithal to basically push their opponent into the end zone and gave their offense the ball back. I imagine the only people happy about this were Austin Eckler's fantasy managers and Browns fans, because in the midst of a wild offensive shootout, this seemed like it would cost the Chargers the game. Luckily for them, it did not, and a Browns Hail Mary landed incomplete. But in this scenario, the Browns Browns 100% made the right decision to literally push their opponent into the end zone. Speaking of the Browns, I have to give this example from a year after in 2022 when they hosted the Jets. The Browns had a commanding 7-point lead and the ball in their hands with under 2 minutes remaining. Oh, and the Jets had 0 timeouts remaining. Nick Chubb took a carry to the left, and rather than sliding and kneeling out the clock, he took it to the end zone to make it a 13-point lead. At the time, we didn't think much of it because the lead seemed insurmountable, but in the final 1 minute and 55 seconds of this game, it seemed like the Jets caught every break imaginable. First, it was Katie York missing the extra points to keep the lead at 13 rather than 14. It took the Jets just 33 seconds to find the end zone, with Corey Davis scoring from 66 yards on a busted coverage, but New York still had to recover an onside kick to even have a shot. Of course, they would end up recovering it, and Garrett Wilson scored a game-tying touchdown with 22 seconds to go. Greg Zuerlein's made extra point meant the Jets pulled off a comeback where they had a 0.3% chance of winning with less than 2 minutes remaining. It's not fair to entirely blame Nick Chubb when the defense and special teams completely melted down, but it still remains true that the Browns come away victorious had he just slid down instead of scored. Clearly, Nick Chubb is not consistent with this theory because in 2020 versus the Texans, he did the exact opposite of what he did in 2022. The Browns were up 3 with a little over a minute to go, and Chubb, who was running free down the sideline, opted to step out of bounds at the 1 rather than score. It led to a Browns victory. Not sure why he did it this time and not the other, especially when it worked the first time. Unlike the strategy of letting your opponent score, which is admittedly difficult to pull off because you're usually pressed for time and need a touchdown, the idea of sliding short of the goal line tends to work every time. A famous example was the 2023 Super Bowl when Jerick McKinnon of the Chiefs had the opportunity to go up 7 in the final 2 minutes, but opted to slide and gave Harrison Butker an easy game-winning field goal attempt. In the past 5 years, field goals attempted inside of 30 yards have a 97.4% conversion rate. McKinnon clearly made the right analytical decision here, and you could tell that the Eagles defenders wanted him to score here. As a Giants fan, I remember Saquon Barkley sliding short of the end zone in 2022 to secure a win over Baltimore, and it's happened plenty of other times, which resulted in plenty of victories. Examples are Brian Westbrook versus the Cowboys in 2007, Maurice Jones-Drew versus the Jets in 2009, Todd Gurley in 2018 versus the Packers. So out of these 5 examples, teams that let their opponents score on purpose ended up going 2-3, and 3-3 if you include the Patriots' self-safety in 2003. So think about it, that's a 500 outcome as compared to going 0-6. It is objectively smart to let your opponent score in those late game situations, and the play itself is an art if you ask me. If your entire defense just laid down at the snap, the ball carrier would know not to score. You almost have to sell that you're trying enough to fool the ball carrier into actually crossing the goal line. I think Tampa did a great job of that in week 2, because from the naked eye, it did look like an honest effort to tackle Nick Chubb at first. The week after, in week 3, the Jets could have given Tampa a taste of their own medicine, but didn't. Sterling Shepard was about to break loose for a touchdown to go up 5 with a minute left, but the Jets tackled him at the 18-yard line. Problem was, New York had no more timeouts remaining, so that tackle inbounds led to a Chase McLaughlin 36-yard field goal center hash, which of course he made, and the Buccaneers walked off with the win. In that situation, I understand making the tackle, but the chances of blocking 2 field goals in a row were slim to none there if you're the Jets. I'd rather give my offense a minute and 30 seconds to go score a touchdown, but hindsight is 20/20 there. That's what makes football unique. In no other sport would you willingly let your opponent score to potentially benefit yourself in the end. As time goes on and kids who grew up playing Madden become real-life head coaches, we're only going to see an increase in these type of things. And to be honest, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's an added layer to this already great sport. Remember how cool it was when the Ravens punt team intentionally started holding everybody on the final play against the Bengals in order to secure a win? I feel like more of that stuff the better, but maybe it's just me, I don't know. So let me know in the comments, do you guys think it's a smart idea to let your opponent score in these late game situations, or should you play it out ethically and hope for the best? That'll do it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will talk to you guys next time.